Again, thank you for staying with us. Still on our election education, voter education drive, among other things. Let's welcome Mr. Mike Igini, who is a former INEC resident electoral commissioner in Akwa Ibom State. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Mr. Igini. Let's begin with the judiciary. There are those who are... Yes, good morning. Let's begin our conversation with the role the judiciary has been playing in our electoral process. A number of things that you are not unaware of has been happening. The Osun case, for instance, which you spoke to, and I remember you also responded to the media saying, look, as far as you're concerned, the judiciary shouldn't be allowed to play certain roles which the electorate or the electoral process is supposed to play. Give us an understanding, since the judgment is out now, and of course, the process of it is still on. What's your initial reaction to that one, and how do we forestall that going forward?
Thank you very much, Ayo, for having me. Democracy is often associated with the rule of law. And in any democracy, the judiciary is one of the most powerful, if not indeed the most powerful arms to which all must bow, so that when there are disputes arising from elections, those matters are taken to court where they are expected to be resolved. But the practice around the world is to ensure that the process of election, which is what people like myself, we are more interested in, the process, and the outcome be determined by the people. And the idea is that we must ensure that when the elections are credible, there will be no need to go to courts. And I often give as an example, Ayo, the situation, what happened in England, that before now, it was the fear about the fact that if courts of law are made to answer political questions, that sooner or later, political class, there will be struggle for the control of the judiciary in England. It was against that background that they decided first that such matters should be dealt with at the parliament. But when they realized that even in parliament, there was no electoral justice because of issue about simple majority in the House of Commons, eventually they resorted back to the court. But because of the fear of that control, they decided way back in 1832 with an enactment to ensure that there was a profound reform so that the will of the people is determined finally and conclusively at the point of election. This is what we have been trying to do here. Therefore, the role of the judiciary is very critical for the survival of any democracy around the world. Now, back home here, are we satisfied with the role of the judiciary so far? I am on record for several years, and that I've been carrying placard in my heart, and this is historical, that the judiciary has not lived up to expectation. I gave people an example of what happened in the First Republic. I gave an example of what happened in 1979. I gave an example of what happened in 1983, when our own icon, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, declared, when he was asked, will you not go to the court? Awolowo said, and I quote him, these are not my words, I will not go to court because the judiciary, according to him, will not give electoral justice. And that was why he refused to go. That has been a pattern. Recall that the June 12th that was aborted started at the doorstep. Of course, the politician will start it, they will go to the judiciary. At the end of the day, everything ended up and aborted, such that on the 23rd of June, when the notice, the press statement to annul June 12 was released, it was said that the June 12 had to be annulled in order to save the judiciary for anarchy. This is what they have said. Now, fast forward, where we are today. For a very long time, for a very long time, internal party democracy had been under life support. That was why there was massive effort by all Nigerians, the National Assembly, and the President signed the 2022 Electoral Act to ensure that for a political party to conduct primary, you must give 21-day notice. That was section 82 of the Act. and that INEC under 84 must monitor, and that such persons must emerge from valid primaries. The outcome of the judgment we have seen so far is finally has put a dead nail to this section. In fact, what has happened is what we call the interment of Section 82, Section 84, Section 29 of the current Act. So for me, Ayo, going forward, my concern is this, and this is that in a democracy, the first
just a quick one, Mr. Igini, just to be clear. I mean, going by the recommendations that were the citations that you have done from the Electoral Act, I just want to find out if you think, I mean, conclusively, that, you know, that's exactly what the judgment says. Because speaking to a lawyer yesterday, you may have listened to us, he was saying that, look, as far as he is concerned, whatever position the party takes on the primaries is what holds. So if a party says we are holding this particular primaries at a particular place or in a particular place, the INEC is bound to be there. If INEC does not attend that primary, as far as they are concerned, they go ahead with that position. That's, according to him, is the response to which the court gave to this particular matter at hand, that INEC didn't monitor, not because INEC was not informed, but because INEC refused to attend, because as far as INEC was concerned, another primary had been held. What's your take on that?
Ayo, the return to the domestic affair political parties, which is what this lawyer you are referring to has talked about, is a tragedy in our democracy. It was in the case of Onwoha versus Okafor in 1983 that the Supreme Court, as per Obaseki JSC as he was then, in interpreting the Section 83 of the 1982 Electoral Acts, in interpreting that section, that stated clearly, unequivocally, that when there's a dispute between a candidate as to who should be the candidate of a party, that section specifically provided that records should be had to the leaders and their decision will be final. It was against that background that the lead judgment read by Obaseki, which was the judgment of the court, was to the effect that having regard to that particular provision, the court will have nothing to do. However, the current act, we have moved away from that long time ago. The current act, first and foremost, Ayo, let me quickly say this here. All the jurisprudence with respect to interpretation of the repeal act are no longer applicable with respect to the current 2022 Electoral Act. Now, let me say this here, that if our democracy is based on the rule of law, it meant that political party leaders must respect first their internal members. The fact that it's an affair of political party that INEC required to monitor does not mean that you would not, adhere to the procedure. Let me clear the issues about whether INEC refusal to monitor or not monitor. First and foremost, it should be noted that a primary election is a generic process that has the constituent element of the following. One, you must buy a nomination form. When you buy that nomination form, you must fill it. After there's a time for closure. After the closure, there'll be a committee to screen people. The people you are referring to that the court has given ticket now, were they ever screened by any committee for senatorial elections? The answer is emphatic no. Those who were screened, their names were sent to the commission. Now, with respect to notice, Section 82 is clear that you must give what you call 21 days notice. Now, Ayo, in respect of these matters that have taken Nigeria back to where we used to be before, is the fact that the primary election for senatorial was on the 27th of May. That of presidential was in June, 2 separate months that this event took place. Now, When they said they canceled the first primary, who canceled it? What was the reason for the cancellation? And when they said they want to hold another one on the 9th of June, the notice they are talking about, we were at the commission's meeting on the 8th and on the 9th. 9th was the last day on account of INEC shifting extension from on the 3rd of June to on the 9th. Presidential primary ended on the 8th. The whole world, Nigerians, the entire empirical world, saw the actors who were in the presidential contest right now. So on the 9th, which was around 8 o'clock, I got a call. I was still in Abuja after our meeting. In the 9th, Ayo, that there was going to be a primary, what I call a Nicodemus primary. In the 9th, the question is, does that meet the requirement of 21 days notice? Because you say you have canceled the previous one. If you canceled it, you must give what they call 21 days notice of another primary that you want to conduct, which of course is not even possible, having regard to the timetable. In APC versus Carfield, the Supreme Court of the Federal Republic of Nigeria stated clearly that no political party can extend the timeline that have been fixed for election. In this so-called Nicodemus June 9 primary senatorial they call rerun, didn't meet the requirement of 21 days. It was in the night, conducted in the night. What about the other candidate? So I think that my concern, Ayo, these are clear facts known that if we are in a democracy, those who didn't participate in political party primaries are now being given the tickets. And this is so notorious. The whole world saw this happen. For me, it is what is now become a past tense, in the sense that the Supreme Court of any country, like our own, is one that we lawyers literally say that it is the one that can make a man a woman and make a woman a man. However, even though we're going to bar, we have not lost our sense of justice, our sense of sanity with respect to that. The only implication, that the only worry I have is for the future, because this judgment had implication for the future. And so for me, really, I believe that in our democracy, the judiciary must be able to call justice by its true name.
Well, sorry, Mr. Igini, just 1 second. A quick follow-up on an issue that you raised on Section 82(1) of the Electoral Act. Section 82(1) says the Commission shall be given the 21 days notice. 82(2) does not mandate the Commission to attend, because 82(2) says the Commission may, with or without prior notice to the political party, attend.
No. Ayo, one of the things that we lawyers do is that we don't read a section of a constitution in isolation of another specific, what you call a provision. So you must have what you call a community reading. So by way of community reading, go to section 84, subsection 1, which says that a political party intending to field a candidate shall conduct party primaries that shall be monitored by the Independent National Electoral Commission. If you go down to subsection 13 or 12, you will see that where they fail to comply, when you have to submit the list of candidates under section 29, the law says that such individual must emerge from valid primaries. Are we saying, Ayo, that people who participate, it will be a different thing if, for example, the presidential election was the one that came first, that is primaries or convention. Thereafter, we now had what we call senatorial by June, in which case, if a party feels that indeed it needed more viable individual to be in the Senate, they would have had that opportunity. But that opportunity was no longer possible. All these individuals we are talking about, they violated section 115. I am told that somebody came to your station. I was saying that some of us did not read the law very well. I think that the guy who says so is the one who is not fully apprised of the import of that section 115. The very crisis we are in today, this issue we are discussing now, which for me really is academic, because Supreme Court has spoken, these guys are already candidate and all of that, is the reason what wanted to stop by ensuring that you have Section 115 to preclude individuals from filling two different constituency elections by that nomination. However, I know that because of the illegal drafting, what sometimes I refer to in my book, which is in the work, I refer to a statute capture or statute sabotage. What happened was that when you go to the definition section, you are likely to be misled by the wrong definition given as to who is a candidate, which according to them, he must have been first come out of primary, and it is the form. It is the form that INEC gives to you that constitute that you cannot fill two forms. Ayo,
so Mr.
Bukola,
Igini,
may I ask you?
Mr.
No, let me just land on this. Ayo, Bukola, once you have emerged as a candidate, will it not be stupid, preposterous of anybody to go and fill two forms? No, the forms you are referring to were the form that they bought with so much millions, not the form that INEC would do, which is free. That form is free. That is not the form that referred to under section 115, subsection D, because nobody will, recklessly go and fill two forms after you have emerged. What is desperation from? The desperation that will try to cure the mischief, which is what is going on now, was that if, for example, these guys follow the rule of the law as stipulated, will not be where we are today, is to preclude people who intend to be candidates from buying nomination forms. That is what we meant. The set of nomination forms.
Mr. Igini, let me just come in there. Pardon me, Mr. Igini. So would you agree then that the inelegant drafting, using your words, is what is responsible for the shadow of doubt that has now been cast on Section 115 of the Electoral Act as amended? Because the lawyers on the program yesterday say you can't interpret Section 115 without recourse to the Electoral Act, to how the Electoral Act also defines who a candidate is.
Bukola, I just told you about what you call statute sabotage and statute capture. Section 31 of the Repeal Act was a good example of statute sabotage. That section says that submit list of candidates, which will now have that section 29. That was the original text. When we came on board, and we pointed out to the political class the import of that and the need for them to do proper primary. You know what they did with what happened in Cross River State? They simply went, removed the full stop and added a proviso with an omnibus expression that whatever list of candidates submitted by a political party, that INEC cannot reject for any reason whatsoever. That's what we suffer for a very long time. Now, this section 115, beyond that definition, all right, with our canon of interpretation, if the ordinary meaning, ordinary reading of the text does not convey the meaning to you and other, you must deploy what we call the mischief rule. What was the mischief that section intended to cure? That section, Bukola, was intended to ensure the very that is happening now, that those who participated in presidential primary convention have now been returned back again to one contest, what you call it, senatorial. That is impossible. That's what we wanted to cure. That's what we wanted to cure. But regrettably,
Mr. Igini, the jury is out on whether or not that mischief has been cured, which is why many are lamenting the Supreme Court judgment on the Lawan and Machina case. By extension, also, you could cite others, that of the former Minister of the Niger Delta Affairs and candidate in Akwa Ibom State. They're also even citing that of the Imo State, where the governor, current governor, emerged. And now, by extension, defining these politicians or executives as Supreme Court appointees rather than being duly elected from the ballot. So, Mr. Igini, as a result, what do you recommend to be the solution to this legal conundrum? Because you've cited over and over again the case of England, where reforms had to be introduced into the system. So would you say that there should be a judicial ceiling where cases of election petitions should get to? Would that be the solution to this challenge?
No, that is not the problem. We don't have problem with that, Bukola. I don't think that the issue about primaries already matter that ought to have ended since June. That's not where we should be right now. And that's why I told you that it's mere academic exercise. And I just told you here that the first efforts, the rule of law is the first victim of the subversion of democracy. Lebitsky and Zipler, in their recent work, How Democracy Died, they made it clear that when political class repudiates, rejects the norms and values on which democracy is practiced, that democracy will die. If the arbitrariness of political party leaders are not curbed by the court standing tall, demonstrating courage, demonstrating fearlessness, independent, clearly our democracy will be in trouble. This is where we are right now.
Well,
now,
Mr.
there are two schools of thought.
My apologies, Mr. Igini. Just a second. Just a second.
For solution.
Yes. We really, I mean, you've nailed that one as far as I'm concerned, and let's just leave this because there are so many other things I would like you to educate us on. You've said that the courts have to play a role in curbing the excesses of political parties. I guess that's another conversation for another time. But I'd like you to take us through the election policy flow and execution. Yesterday we featured two gentlemen from INEC talking about voter education and the role of the technology of the equipment that's going to be used, mainly beavers. But take us through the flow, what people should expect, what role INEC is going to play, what role we are going to play as a people, what the flow is so that people know exactly how to approach it.
Well, if you can put it on, you can put it on so that Nigerians can see it very well. That pyramid that I have sent to you, which I said you put on so that Nigerians can see clearly, this is to show to you, if you look at the pyramid, you look at the top, you see the chief national returning officer of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, with respect to presidential election. And of course, next, you see the headquarters itself. The next to that is the INEC state offices, and you have the local government, which is the blue column. Beyond that blue column, down to the bottom, you can see the base. INEC is going to engage about 1 million people, if not more. But the total staff of INEC that have been preparing for this election, they are not up to 20,000. What that means in part, because when you get to the local government level, at the point of what you call supervising presiding officers, these are not called INEC staff. These are staff to be drawn for federal agencies who, the process like exchange of batting. They are going to be the ones that will be in charge of the ballot papers, the result sheets, and who will now deliver same to the presiding officer. The point being made here is that the success of any election is a reflection of the collective value of that society. If the enthusiasm that we have seen so far, that is going to surpass whatever we have seen in the history of our country, would be anything that we should be happy about. What is here has shown that this election, its success or failure will be entirely in the hands of the Nigerians, because from the SPO, local government election officers, registration area officers, the presiding officer, presiding officer, they are all Nigerian citizens. One interesting thing about this chart I'm showing to you here, looking at the register of voters that we have now, IO, what is very clear is that just as you have the youth between ages 18 to 34, 35 to 49, constituting over 70+ million on that register. If you look at the base, you also find out that it is also the youth that are also going to be in charge of this election. Therefore, anybody who is doing anything trying to trouble Mr. Chairman, trouble National Commissioner, a rep, or an electoral officer, there's nothing they can do for anybody on election day. What you are seeing is election day pyramid. That is the point we're trying to make here, that the success of this election is clearly in your hands, Nigerians, that the polling units are not the places where election will be won. That is the point with respect to that flow, to show that everything is in the hands of Nigeria to determine. And they must keep faith and keep date with history on the 25th of February and on the 11th of March, respectively. That is what that flow is all about.
Pick up on something you mentioned, Mr. Igini, while you were making your earlier point about Section 82(1) concerning the notice that parties have got to give to INEC, and where it talks about every registered political party shall give the commission at least 21 days notice of any convention, congress, and the likes. Now, I think we heard you say that if that starts and then they stop, they have to give fresh 21-day notice. But there are many who think otherwise. They think that even the courts recognize that when you give the 21 days notice and the process begins, if you reschedule, you do not have to give fresh 21-day notice, because that's the impression they get from you, that you are saying that they have to give fresh 21 days notice. Is that your point?
Correctly. You see, the event of on the 27th was a concluded event. They themselves said it was cancelled. No reason given for the cancellation. You cannot just cancel a primary. In fact, it is very clear. Section 33 is very clear of the act that no political party can change a candidate that have emerged for primary. You can read it. It's there. Now, if event has been concluded and you say you want to do another one, you are required to give 21 days notice. That is compulsory. You must give it. Except in case of Section 34. Section 34, where the act was explicit with respect to voluntary withdrawal or death, like what happened a few days ago, last week in Abia, in which case it requires another just 14 days notice. 14 days notice, where the views being expressed wrongly.
I get that point, but what I'm asking is, if the process starts, having given the commission the 21 days required notice, why do they have to give, or do they have to give a fresh 21-day notice if they continue the process where they started with?
Chamberlain, that process of 27th of May had been completed and report had been written. It's a completed process, completed acts. Otherwise, you could say that why would you now require another 14 days? Because it is not a continuous thing. You must give a fresh notice. That is why, as a matter of fact,
so I'm looking at this. I'm looking at this from a broad perspective. If a party starts that process and then they say, well, we are rescheduling this process, will they be required to give the commission a fresh 21-day notice?
When did you give the notice of rescheduling? Let me inform. There's a timeline. INEC gave timeline for that exercise. That timeline, according in the Supreme Court case of APC vs. Carfi, Supreme Court was very clear that no court in the land can extend the timeline given by INEC. And that's why I'm worried, Chamberlain. Some of the orders being given by some court. You cannot be given fresh order for the conduct of fresh primaries outside the timeline, because there's a consequence. We are where we are today, Chamberlain, that we are in a permissive society. There are no consequences for wrongdoing. I have not seen any country around the world where we have to beg citizens to do the right thing. Society make progress on the basis of sanction and reward. Where a party fails to do what it ought to do within that time, the consequence is that you will not have a candidate for election. That is the consequence. It is my humble view, a strong one indeed, that the Supreme Court, the court of the land, should give meaning and purpose to the ballot as the best means of the expression of the will of the people in a democracy, by calling justice by its true name. Today, the judiciary that was so audacious, that was very bold, under the military.
Yeah, but Mr. Igini,
we are not seeing that happening at the moment.
Is at what point is the process, still regarding Section 84, at what point is it said to have been completed? I mean, some argue that a process is not completed until the party sends the nomination lists to INEC. Isn't that the case?
And that's why I told you that election is a generic process that has what we call constitutive element, one after the other, one after the other. Now, please, I raised some fundamental questions. I don't know why you have not abated your mind to that. Were these two people ever screened as senatorial candidates during the timetable? They were never screened. Were their names sent to the state offices around the country that they were going to be candidates? The answer is emphatic no. Did they swear to affidavit attached to their senatorial forms and published at the time they were required to do so? The answer, no. So please, let's go back. Look, you don't climb the tree from the top. You climb the tree from the bottom. What has happened is represent the greatest level of democratic discredit of our democracy.
Well, you've said that all of this is an academic exercise because the verdict of the Supreme Court has already been given. And as far as you lawyers say, you say it is an infallible decision. The Supreme Court is the final court of jurisdiction. I just want to take your mind to something that is about to occur. Which is the elections we have at hand. We saw the INEC chairman speak and say that he had briefed the Federal Executive Council, and I think he's also set to brief the Council of State at a meeting on Friday. And all of this is geared towards assuring them about INEC's preparedness for the elections. Do you have any fears whatsoever? Because he said after he briefed them, they were assured. That for me was very telling. I was wondering, you know, has there been any reason why people should be afraid that the polls might not take place as scheduled?
As at the last time I checked the timetable and schedule of activity that were released by Commission over a year ago, INEC have completed about 12 out of, they are already at 14 out of 12 out of the 14 or so. They have done that. Now, with respect to the issue about fuel scarcity, you all know that on election day, Nigerians, all of you, you have to just take a walk to where you register to vote. Of course, you are in essential duty. I'm sure you are going to be on the program, so you need fuel. But essentially on that day, it's only INEC vehicles that we needed petrol to go about. In any case, I've worked for 10 years. We never found a situation where a vehicle had to fill its tank twice during the course of just taking people to the polling unit, having to stay there for reverse logistics. No, fuel for use are available, as assured, having met with GMD of NMPC. I think the only thing that is left is that the issue about the CBN, issue the cash scarcity and all of that, those who also want to vote and all that, they also have to leave. And I think that, as I said before on this program when we started, that those who are going to sabotage this policy, which I support wholeheartedly because I am for a cashless electoral process, particularly on election day. But for the Nigerian people, all of us who need cash, you know, to be able to do a few things, particularly those in the rural area and all of that, I think that the CBN should ensure that they should go and service more the rural area. After all, you and I, we can do with a transfer process, you know. But I think that basically there is no basis to say they want to shift the election. And I think that the chairman was very clear as to the fact that on the 25th and on the 11th of March, election to hold as planned.
Well, so, Mr. Igini, just before we go, because we have very few minutes to go on this program now, well, you sent a number of other things just to inform Nigerians generally. Speak to us about this two-thirds thing. Why does it seem like there is some confusion as far as the number of people are concerned about this whole idea around the two-thirds majority of local governments as required?
Yes, if you can put out the table there, this is very important. We must move away from what happened in a highly contested elections like this. It is better, all of us, to know what's required to declare the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. If we can have the two tables there, you know, which of course I've also made available to my former commission, is very important. First, you need to tell 25%. Now, this is with respect to states. If you look at this table, it is INEC to now deal with this, to come out with the final position. Hold on to this table first. Now, I want to speak to this table. This table, it shows that in each state, you need require 25% in what is the two-thirds? What constitutes two-thirds of Abia State that has what you call 17 local government? From what you could see here, mathematically, those of you who are good in maths, you can see that out here. It is now 11.3. Can you fractionalize a local government? So which one is the commission going to take? Is it upper limit or lower limit? So in a whole of 20, for example, look at Bauchi State, look at Bayelsa, look at Benue, Gombe. All of these ones that have what they call fraction. To avoid what happened in 1979, it is for the commission to take a decision, whether you are taking upper limit or lower limit. Now, and this goes about, how many of them? About 21 states where we have this set, 21 states. Now, go to the second table quickly. Now, the second table is one that is very clear. To tell that is required in each of the states is very clear. That's the second table. Now, this about 12 states. If you look at Adamawa, it has 21 local government. It gives you just 14 local government where you must score 25%. That is very clear, unambiguous. So a returning officer should not be confused on that day. Voters, those who are campaigning, you now know that it's actually 14 that you require. Please take it forward. Now you find out that, yes, Federal Capital Territory, you need 4. Imo State, you need 18 because it has 27 local government. Imo, Jigawa, Kebbi, both of them you require, no, Imo, Jigawa, they are 27 local government respectively, 18 local government. Now, any state where anybody will be declared, you must less than 18 local government. 17, 16, anybody declared beyond this one is unconstitutional. Is unconstitutional. That is what is very clear. So 13 states of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, as we are going for this election, it is very clear what to require. The rest of the first table, what to require is for the INEC to now come out with the final decision on that, so that we don't need to go to court. I say this because in the United States of America, Chamberlain, Ayo, Bukola, Maupe, you all know that of the entire 285 delegates, you need to score 270 and not 70 point something to be declared a president of the United States of America. This has to be made clear to everybody, so that some of the things that happened in 2019 and back where some people were declared without meeting the constitutional threshold, it should never happen in our country again.
Okay, well, Mr. Igini, again, as I always say, every time we have to engage you, it's always election 101, or I don't even know whether to call it 401 now.
We didn't have time for the beavers.
We never really, but don't worry, you know very well that we're going to have to come back to that another time. We had a conversation around beavers yesterday, but for now, we have to thank you very much for the privilege of your perspectives this morning. Mike Igini is a former INEC resident electoral commissioner with Akwa Ibom State. Thank you again for your time this morning.
Thank you, Ayo.